that everything is bigger in Texas, including apparently the problems they cause in Chicago. What am I talking about? Well, I'm not going to hold you up. You're back on the forum with me, Sylvia Snowden, and I'm going to get our very special guest right in here. I am so thrilled to have with me today Alderman Gilbert Villegas. Hello, Alderman Villegas.
How you doing, Sylvia? Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming down. People don't know because they're not watching this live, but it's early. It's the weekend that we're actually sitting here talking to one another. And early on the weekends, people can be a lot of different places, but you decided to be here with me. So I appreciate that.
No problem. Thank you for the invitation.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So I really wanted to talk about what's happening in Texas and what's happening in Chicago. And I really wanted to talk about it with you specifically because, you know, I follow a lot of the elected officials on Twitter. And you're one of the ones that I follow.
Oh, okay.
And you put out a tweet. And I have to say, it got my attention, especially because it came from you. And for people at home who do not know this, I used to host a show here that focused on politics. I studied politics and political figures a lot. I studied you and your colleagues. And you kind of have a reputation, how can I say it? You're kind of like Chill Gil.
Yeah.
You know, like,
I like that.
Yes, like you don't really bother anybody. People don't really bother you. You say what you have to say, but you kind of stay on out the way. You don't bother nobody. And yet, you put out this tweet, and I was like, oh, Alderman Villegas. And I'm going to read it so the people at home know what you said. Texas Governor Greg Abbott is sending more buses to Chicago, and they're expected to arrive tomorrow afternoon or Tuesday. Let me repeat that this guy is cruel and a straight jagoff for trafficking humans.
Yeah.
Alderman Villegas.
Yeah. I stand by that comment. And you know, and it takes a lot to get me fired up. And I think what you're seeing is, you know, an elected official who's taken an oath to defend this, you know, an oath from Texas, which takes into account, you know, defending the country and all those things. And yet here he is engaging in human trafficking of people that are seeking asylum. And then trying to make a statement by sending them to quote unquote blue cities and blue states to show that the immigration system is broken. And at the end of the day, this system is broken. I mean, we have 11 million people that are here. They've assimilated into society. They're not going anywhere. Matter of fact, they're your neighbors. And so they're contributing to society and in some cases will never benefit from some of the Social Security payments and other taxes and fees and fines that they pay into the city and into the country. So, you know, it's frustrating because again, you know, we're talking about human beings, you know, and having spoken to some of the families that have arrived and hearing some of the stories, they're heartbreaking. They're heartbreaking because we're talking about a mom with an 11-month-old child, a mom with a 2-year-old child who went through the jungles of Panama to get to Mexico, got robbed of everything, even the pamper bag, arrived to the border with absolutely nothing, and is looking for a country that has been a beacon of hope and light, and allowed under the U.S. laws to seek asylum. And so for the governor, who's an elected official, has taken an oath, I think that's wrong. And so yeah, it was a little rough on my comment, but again, I stand by that comment.
I know you were unhappy, but you called the governor of Texas a jagoff, though. Why? That didn't seem like.
Yeah, I think what you're seeing from, again, an elected official.
Yeah.
We're held to a higher esteem.
Okay.
Okay. We are entrusted with a lot of responsibility by the public. Mm-hmm. And when you reach the position of governor, I mean, that means that, you know, the whole state is supporting your initiative or we're wanting to see your leadership on things. And so when you see Governor Texas Abbott utilizing human beings and human trafficking for political aspirations that, you know, he may want to run for president, I think that's wrong, and that is a bad move on his part. And whether it's Governor of Texas Greg Abbott or Governor DeSantis, that again are trying to use human beings to send messages on an issue, on an immigration on an immigration process that's broken, I mean, you got to call it out, and I did.
So, and I want to do this. I just kind of want to go back to the beginning because I think there are a lot of people in Chicago who are seeing stories about migrants. They're seeing people fighting in town halls about immigration, coming down to City Hall and clowning. And a lot of folks really aren't sure, what even happened. So let's do this. When did you first hear that the governor of Texas was shipping folks up here? When did you first get that on your radar?
So that was August of last year.
Okay.
2022 is when the first bus arrived. And again, being a city that's a welcoming city, being Illinois, which is a welcoming state, we're trying to figure a way to deal with the issue. But you're talking right now, today, 11 months later, almost 11,000 people have arrived here in Chicago. Some have moved on to different cities and states where they have relatives, but there's still thousands of people that are here. And so what we're trying to do is allow them the ability to assimilate. However, we need help from the federal government because under the rules, under the laws, right now they're prohibited from working for 6 months until they've received some type of approval. And so we are trying to, be as elected officials here and human beings trying to make sure that we're allowing them to live here with dignity. But right now, the federal government hasn't stepped up. They haven't stepped up in the form of policy. They haven't stepped up in the form of funding. We've made several requests to the federal government, whether through FEMA or to the president himself, that we need some assistance. Now, we have gotten some money, but nowhere near the amount that's needed. To put it into context, it costs the city of Chicago approximately $20 million a month to house these migrants.
20 million.
20 million a month.
For 11,000 people?
Yes.
That's okay. So, and I want to do this too, because I just, since I have you here.
Yeah, of course.
When you first heard that he was sending people, what did you think? Did you think this was just like a political stunt, as you alluded to a moment ago, and he'd send 1 or 2 buses and that would be it? Or what did you think initially when you heard he was doing this?
Yeah, I thought initially that it was going to be a political stunt, that he would be sending migrant and asylum seekers to blue cities, whether it be New York, Washington, D.C., Philly, L.A., to make it a point that, you're welcoming city, you're welcoming states, here you go. And the reality is that, listen, we are, but we need the resources. And so the fact that Texas is getting resources, if they want to send the asylum seekers here with the funding attached to it, absolutely. But again, the federal government needs to step up because at the end of the day, this is an immigration system that's broken. And there's some bipartisan support, unfortunately, not enough. And so what you see in Congress going on, especially with the Republicans that are in charge now, is that they like to make the immigration and that issue a political issue instead of resolving it. Now, I'm hoping that the U.S. Chamber of Commerce at some point steps up and lets the Republicans know that we need new immigrants into this country in order to do the work. This is no different than when the Irish came and the Italians came and Mexicans came. This is just a new phenomenon, a new status with new immigrants that are coming here. This happens every few decades, and so what we want to do is take advantage of that to the point where allowing them to assimilate, allowing them in Chicago's story, allowing them to come into CPS with their kids, which in turn helps funding from the federal government, from the state, helps keep the schools full and helps keep the city thriving. And so I think that the federal government needs to step up big time, and they're just failing us right now.
Oh, okay, so the federal government's sending money to Texas, and Texas is taking that money, paying for buses, and sending them up here instead of actually using the money to get resources for people.
Yeah, you have the Border Patrol down there in the Department of Homeland Security that fund the whole process as it relates to receiving the asylum seekers. And so they're receiving the funds in that format, and then they're just shipping, again, human trafficking migrants up to blue cities, which is just wrong.
Yeah, and let's do this too, because what do we know about the people who are coming?
Yeah.
Where are they from? Why have they come? What do we know?
So the majority of them are from Venezuela, but you also I have a whole list of we get it on a weekly basis who's coming in. But you have people from Haiti, you have people from the Dominican Republic, you have people coming from from Europe, which is interesting because they're making it there. But just a lot of people that are coming to the border. But the majority of the folks that are coming in are asylum seekers that have been oppressed in their country and are coming here to seek asylum. And under state law, I'm sorry, under federal laws, they're allowed to do that.
And for the folks at home, what's happening in Venezuela that would have people fleeing all the way up to Texas? What?
Yeah. So you just have a government that's just dictatorship.
Okay.
And they're just a brutal president that's in place right now, and the environment is just toxic, and people are just looking at me. Listen, I met with one of the asylum seekers that were coming. He was a police officer.
Okay.
Police officer making about equivalent of $40,000. And when the new president came in, they cut his pay in half and wanted him to do different things, and then they were threatening his family. And so he thought it was time to get out, and so he did. So he made the trek from Venezuela through Panama, through Mexico, and came to the U.S. And his first question to me when I talked with him was, how can I get a job? What can I do to work? These people are here working and wanting to work. And I can tell you they are working. But the problem is that you have people that may be taking advantage of them because they have no recourse. I mean, they shouldn't be working under the law, and there's employers that are taking advantage of them. But these people are so desperate that they don't want to be on a government subsidized system, that they just want to have the ability to seek freedom and prosperity here in the U.S.
Okay. So you said a second ago that at first you thought this was a stunt, right? This is just the governor of Texas, trying to score a few points, put on a bit of a show, maybe announce, he's going to be running for president, help him there. But you didn't think this was serious. When was the first time you thought he was going too far? Like, what was the moment you were like, okay, enough of this?
Well, I think after in the December, January, again, we were just getting bus loads of asylum seekers on a weekly basis. And you're talking about people that are from Venezuela. The weather's a lot different. Coming here with no clothing in January and December in Chicago, we know what it's like. So it's real cold. And so trying to get these human beings to get used to the weather, get used to Chicago in general, we thought it's overboard now, because the federal government is trying to deal with the issue, but again, the governor of Texas and the governor of Florida are playing politics with human beings, and so
and the governor of Colorado was in on it at one point too, right?
For a second, yes.
Yeah. And so, at what point did you because you called it trafficking several times now?
Yeah.
When did you first think this is trafficking? Like, this has gone from a cutesy stunt to like straight trafficking. When did you realize that?
Well, even the first time that when you take someone that's coming to the U.S., they're going through the Department of Homeland Security, and they're waiting to be processed, waiting to go through the legal system that's in place, and then taking them, saying, hey, we're going to put you on a bus, and you don't know where you're going. They just shipped you. They shipped you to a blue city, quote unquote. That's when I thought that the governor was involved in trafficking, because they're coming into the port of entry through Texas. There's government that's in place to help with the process, because there is a process. But then the governor took it upon himself to go ahead and take those folks that are just around waiting, and then say, hey, we're going to ship you out of here, because we don't, we want to send a message that you don't want to secure the border, quote unquote. We're going to ship them to blue cities. When in fact, this is something. It's not about. Of course, we want to secure the border, but what we want to do is make sure that there's an immigration process in place. The fact that it takes 5 to 6 years to go through the courts, it's mind-boggling. I mean, there's no reason why it should take 5 to 6 years. If that's the case, then let the federal government let's get more folks hired up, so that way we can deal with this process, because it's not going away. And this, for the record, this 5 or 6 years is even before the asylum seekers. There's other cases that are in front of these folks. So this has been going on for quite some time. So if the federal government, if we're going to say that there's a process in place where asylum seekers can come here, then let's make sure that we're funding that program to allow for a speedy trial, so that way folks can determine what their fate's going to be here.
Okay, so, and I guess, I have to be honest, a lot of the news coverage I've seen we've put out as the media about what's happening has talked a lot about how them coming here has impacted us and what it's been like for us. And when I saw your tweet, aside from the whole jack-off thing, it was the first time that I guess I was really made to think about what it was like for them, and how this is impacting them. And, this is happening to us, but this is happening to them too. And you're saying that people are just showing up and no one is asking them where they'd like to go, where they want to go. They're just putting them on a bus and they don't know where. Do most people know that they're coming to Chicago? Or
they will. No, they don't until they're maybe midway. And so now there's been a network developed amongst the asylum seekers. And so with technology, they're communicating with one another as to which places to try to get to, or where are people going where there's a lot more resources. And so, so they're communicating amongst themselves. And so when they do arrive here, we do ask them, do you have any family here in the United States of America? And we try to help connect them so that way, again, they can assimilate to society. If they don't, then obviously they're in our possession, and we're trying to work with them to make sure we're providing the necessary resources for them to, while they're waiting for their court case or waiting for those 6 months to lapse, that then they can apply and begin to start working. So I think that's where we're at right now. And it is tough. And I would ask anyone who, to think about yourself right now, leaving your home with just whatever you can pack, and then going to a different country because it's so bad where you're at, and then just wishing and hoping that when you get there, that you'll have the ability to live. And so that's what we're talking about here. People are leaving their homes, their countries where they would rather stay because they're born and raised there, but they're so desperate that they're leaving because of the tyranny that's going on in Venezuela with the dictator, and just the atmosphere, and that they're willing, they want to get out of there and go somewhere better. And so I want people to imagine that. And I think right now, as time goes on and the process takes place, when these new neighbors, when they start assimilating here, they'll be contributing to our society. They'll be contributing in the form of whether working, paying taxes, purchasing homes, going to schools, et cetera. So it's an investment now. I would also say this, that in the U.S. government, when it's time for the census, we receive money based on personnel, so on people rather. So the 10,000 plus people that are here
is more money for
Chicago. So for each person, it's $14,000. So those 10,000 people equate to $140 million of new revenue that will come to the city in the form of investing in infrastructure, public schools, health, hospitals, et cetera.
Okay, so I have to ask this because this was a hot button issue in our very recent mayoral election. The immediate past mayor, Lori Lightfoot, straight told the governor of Texas and the governor of Colorado, stop sending people up here. We're out of space, we're out of room, we're out of money. Stop it. Enough. Do you subscribe to that philosophy that they should just stop sending people, or what do you think?
Well, I think that when we're taking a look at, again, the federal government needs to step up here. This is a situation where it needs to be more organized. If the federal government is determining that Texas is being overwhelmed and that there's other cities or states that can help with this issue, then let's make sure it's planned. Make sure that it's coordinated. I think just to put people on a bus and say, see you later, I think is the wrong approach. And I think that's what the message was. It's like, cut it out because of the fact that what you're doing is playing with people's lives. And we want to make sure that it's a coordinated plan.
And stressing our resources.
Absolutely.
And we saw folks, frankly, act a little ugly.
And here, listen, we were at the city council and there was a debate about that. And I've told my colleagues, especially on the south and west sides where there are issues, that, listen, let's put a plan together. Let's talk about this. There is enough for everyone. Let's try to figure this out. This crisis that's going on now is a manufactured crisis by the governor of Texas. But the crisis and the issues that are going on in the south and west sides of the city, let's figure out a plan to do that. And I think there's an appetite to do that based on the new body of city council members that are there. And I think Mayor Johnson wants to do that. So I think it's about putting together a plan, figuring out how to do this. You know, I was a big proponent, and I am a big proponent of Invest Southwest, right? Because we're talking about two segments of the city that have been disinvested in for decades. I mean, you can go on the west side today and see structures that were burned down from the 1968.
I mean, King Rights, sure, yeah.
Right? And so that's wrong. And so we got to make sure that we're making these investments. And you've seen that there are investments that are coming to almost to the tune of $2 billion in south and west sides of the city. Now, we got to get the bureaucracy out of the way to actually get them completed, right? Because we're talking about months and years to get things done. It's just frustrating. I mean, because listen, if we're going to make an impact, we're going to get people jobs, then we need to get these projects approved so that way the contractor can start working. The store can open up and start employing people. But when you're, and that's where I get frustrated with government is that there isn't a sense of urgency. There isn't government, we don't manufacture or sell widgets. Like we sell a service. And it's incumbent upon us to deliver those services in an efficient manner, getting people working, making sure that we're dealing with constituent issues in a timely fashion. And I think that's where, as the chairman of Economic Capital and Technology for the city, for the committee, my job is to make sure that we're doing that. And that's why we've done, on the economic standpoint, the Guaranteed Basic Income Pilot Program. On the technology standpoint, we did the technology assessment for the first time in the city's history. Now there's a blueprint on how the city's going to move forward with implementing technology on a cost savings standpoint, but also making sure that we're delivering the service that I talked about. Then on the capital side, construction. There's a bunch of construction, $3.9 billion over 5 years. That's going through my committee. We're making sure that we're investing in our infrastructure.
Okay, so you're not saying stop sending people up here. You're saying stop sending folks up here with no money. Stop.
And without a plan.
Okay.
Yeah, and without a plan. If the United States of America, if we're open, and we have these laws in place, and if there's communication between the states and the federal government to say, hey, we've reached capacity, who else can we send the asylum seekers, which are under U.S. law, have the ability to seek asylum? Let's put a plan together and say, hey, you're a sanctuary state. Do you have the ability, if we provide funding with the asylum seeker to come up here, are you willing to take that person? And I think that's where you could get a better approach to dealing with this issue. So,
and I have to ask this too, because this came up in the campaign a lot as well. Whose fault is it that there is no plan? Because one of the attacks leveled at then Mayor Lightfoot was, you said we're a welcoming city. We said that, but you were talking that talk, but we didn't really actually have the infrastructure to welcome anybody. This is our fault. We should have never called ourselves a welcoming city if we weren't really ready to welcome. Do you think that's a legitimate critique, or do you think that is, when people run for office, they say so? But
I would say that is unwarranted critique, because we are a welcoming city. We've voted on this. We're a welcoming state. But when you're talking about dealing with a manufactured crisis, we got to call that out, which we have. But we also need the federal government to step up, because there's laws on the books that allow for this to occur. Whether you're from, whatever country you're from, that you're seeking asylum, you have that right to do that here in the U.S. It's the law. So the fact that there wasn't a plan, I think that it's hard to plan for this, because you don't know what you're getting, and you don't know the resources that are available to deal with the issue. So there's a lot of unknowns. So people will try to do the best they can. What you're seeing now from this administration is that there's a person now that's going to be responsible for immigration and refugee rights at the deputy mayor level. Yeah. And then also you have there's been some requests at the state level for funding. Also, they're talking about it at the federal level. The federal level, I don't have a lot of hope for, because of the fact that you have a divided Congress in the House and Senate, and the fact that Congress likes to pit people against each other. And so, these immigrants to the U.S. usually get the low jobs, right? But they like to say, hey, they're taking jobs away. Well, I don't see a big line of people wanting to go pick lettuce and and pick vegetables and stuff like that. And so, but the state, I think is going to step up. But we just got to figure a way to put forward a case where what we're doing is efficient and there's a return on the investment, so that we can make our case to the state. And then locally here, we're trying to do our best. We're partnering with the county. The county's providing the healthcare services when asylum seekers first come here, and then the city's trying to do their best for the long term, for that 6 months, to see what happens there.
Yeah, I mean, this has really been fascinating to sort of watch unfold as, just a bystander. And like I said, not just the fact that people have come, but the way people have responded. It has been really, I mean, you've seen some, I'm sure, xenophobia to a degree. We don't want them here. But I think, we've also seen some people say, listen, because I think it's sort of bigger than resources. Yeah. I think that there are some, I'll just say Black people who have told me, because they know I do this show, and I think maybe they're hoping they'll get a shout out on the show, but they said, when's Chicago gonna welcome us? Yeah. People sleeping in police station, those young guys on what is it, the O Block, who live in that area, legally they can go sleep in the police station. They don't feel like they can go sleep in the police station. Yeah. And they don't, feel the love that the migrants have been feeling. And they're like, well, hey, we've been here. Can we get not even some money, some of the love? And some of the things that have come about, and some of the feelings that were sort of simmering, it's been fascinating to watch. I mean, for sure, don't you think?
Yeah, no, I agree with that. And that's why when we started seeing that brewing, we had discussions with members of the Black Caucus to figure out, listen, these are asylum seekers that are Latino, primarily from Latin America. And, but that being said, I mean, if there are, Invest Southwest is a great initiative, $2 billion. A lot of it hasn't come to fruition yet because, again, the bureaucracy is killing and really just slow walking these projects. But if there are plans out there that my colleagues have that talk about investing in the African American community, bring it out. Let us hear about it. I mean, we want to make sure that everyone is succeeding in the city of Chicago. I know, for one, again, I've been a huge proponent of Invest Southwest because of the fact that I've always known that if you're going to make investments in communities that have been disinvested in, there's going to be a lot of incentive initially. After a while, the market will take care of itself, because what you'll see is, are we subsidizing a project 80%? Yes, but as it begins to make business sense, companies are going to want to move there because of the fact that real estate's a lot cheaper. There's a lot more availability of workforce that want to get involved, and again, the market will take care of itself there.
And I said this before we started, you're always so diplomatic, Alderman. I really like that, which is why the tweet struck me. Now, from some of your colleagues, I wouldn't have thought twice about it. Yeah. But from you, it's just, you're such a nice guy. And I really do want to end by asking you this. You said a moment ago that you didn't have a lot of hope for the federal government to really step in and step up and do the right thing here because of their issues. Do you have hope for us as a city that we will at some point get this right and get this worked out, and that we'll do the right thing?
Absolutely. I think that what you're seeing now on the city council is a lot of people that want to do the right thing and understand that all of us have there's enough for everybody. And so it's about making forward a plan, putting together a plan that talks specifically about the details. And so I look forward to working with my colleagues in the Black Caucus around some of the initiatives and some of the agenda items that they want to move forward. And obviously working with the mayor's office to figure out what is it that we can actually fund in the short term, in the 5-year plan and the 10-year plan. Because, we cannot, there's just no, we didn't get here overnight. And so we got to figure a way to do this strategically and make sure the money's behind it. And I think that there's an appetite for that. It's just to be a matter of figuring out how to pay for it. Again, I think that there's some opportunities through technology investments to find the efficiencies, which in turn can fund some of the programs. It's just we deliver that service, and if it takes 12 steps to do it, we've delivered it, when in fact we could have did it in 4. That cost savings, I think, is what we can realize to make these investments in communities.
I'm going to lean in for this one.
Yeah.
Do you have hope for Greg Abbott?
Well, listen, I would hope that he would stop using human beings as political pawns, and I think that's where that's the hope that I have for him. The people are here, whether they're in New York, whether they're in LA, Chicago, Philly, Washington, D.C., they're here. So we're going to deal with it. We're going to step up like we always do, and welcome people, and then make this investment and then see the return later as they become productive citizens here in Chicago.
So you have a little hope for them.
I have a little hope.
A little hope. See?
Yeah.
Alderman Gilbert Villegas is our very special guest today. My sincere thanks to him for being with us. And of course, I thank each of you. I encourage you to stay here with us on the forum. We're talking about whatever I think we need to talk about. I have a few more things I think we should discuss. I'll see you here next time. Bye-bye.